Good evening, everybody. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the South Haven City Council for Monday, November the 18th, 2019. I'd like to call this meeting to order. And the invocation this evening will be given by the Reverend Jeffrey Dick of the First Congregational Church. Good evening, Jeffrey.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Let us be in a spirit of prayer. Holy and gracious God, in this spirit of thanksgiving, we lift with grateful hearts this beautiful city that we call our home. We give you thanks for those who work to keep the city a wonderful place, a nurturing place, and a welcoming place. We also give you thanks for those who serve as elected officials in our city. We ask that you continue to guide them in the work that they offer, that they continue to seek a vision for making this a wonderful place to raise families, to conduct business, and to visit and to call it home. Guide them this evening as they gather, for we ask this in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Jeffrey. And now if you'll join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, roll call. Marcia. Good evening.
Chris Campbell.
Here.
Clark Gruber. Joe Reeser.
Here.
Steve Schlock.
Here.
George Sleeper.
Here.
Letitia Wilkins.
Here.
Scott Smith.
Here.
I'd like to make a motion to excuse Clark Gruber from the meeting.
Second. Motion and a second to excuse Clark Gruber. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
He is excused. Next, we have the approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It's approved. Next, we have the consent agenda, items A through D.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda items A through D.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Reeser.
Yes.
Schlock.
Yes.
Sleeper.
Yes.
Wilkins.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes. Which takes us to old business. Item 7, City Council will be asked to consider action related to the medical marijuana ordinance safety compliance facilities east of Blue Star Highway.
I'd like to,
Hold on, I'm just going to shoot you. You're good. First, we'll be looking for a motion to approve an ordinance to authorize and regulate medical marijuana safety compliance facilities as special uses in a newly created marijuana business overlay zoning district.
I'd like to make a motion to approve an ordinance to authorize and regulate medical marijuana safety compliance facility as specified using in a newly created marijuana business overlay zoning district east of Blue Star Highway.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Then, Brian, do you want to kind of just fill us in on, obviously, there was Planning Commission, what we had discussed previously, and what's being recommended?
Sure. So, members of council, we've got Nick Curcio and Kate Hosier here. Nick and Kate have been working directly with the Planning Commission in their review of the medical marijuana testing provision. The Planning Commission has spent months and come up with 2 recommendations spread over the course of those months. I'll have Nick and Kate walk you through their recommendations and then explain what the council's options are. Nick?
So this is a similar ordinance to one that the council previously considered at the last meeting where it discussed the marijuana. I believe it was your very last meeting. At that meeting, council members expressed a concern about the size of the proposed overlay district. At that time, there were 2 areas being proposed, one of them being east of the Blue Star Highway, the other one being south of Aylworth Avenue. Council members and members of the public expressed concern about the second area, that being south of Aylworth Avenue, and made a motion to ask the Planning Commission to consider removing that. The Planning Commission considered that at their last meeting in the beginning of November. By a vote of 4 to 3, the Planning Commission recommends against removing that area. In the Planning Commission's view, that area is substantially similar to the area that's east of the Blue Star Highway in terms of the uses. But now that the Planning Commission has considered the issue, provided its recommendation to council, which you can read in full in the summary of the discussion during their meeting, the council can now either choose to include that area in the overlay or take it out of the overlay, as was proposed at the last council meeting. That was just a procedural step. Now the council has total discretion as to how to address that issue. Other than that, the proposal has not changed since the last meeting. It's exactly the same proposal you've reviewed previously. It would authorize only medical safety compliance facilities. None of the other medical marijuana businesses would be authorized at this time.
Perfect. That's good to clarify. We are only talking about testing. Very good. So at this, do we have cards filled out, comment cards? So why don't we go ahead, we'll just take some public comment this time. So this is again to discuss item 7A. Anybody like to have any public comments on this topic? Mr. Scott Wall, love to hear from you. Thanks for coming tonight. And if you'll just state your name and address.
My name is Scott Wall. My business is located at 160 Veterans Boulevard. I'd like to thank the Planning Commission for their work on this, and I'd like to thank all of you for your reconsideration constantly on this issue. I did speak at the Planning Commission for them to consider keeping the Aylesworth properties in it. Not that this would benefit me in any way, shape, or form, but I do believe that those are vital properties that could be utilized for potential businesses associated with cannabis industries. And I think that, my business has been supported by many other individuals that are in the cannabis industry. And they have interest in those properties down there. And I think there's real consideration that the concerns are about proliferation, or that any of these businesses are going to bring in cannabis and it's going to be flooding the streets. And the industries that we're speaking about, the processing laboratories, the grow operations, secure transport, those types of things, they can't sell marijuana to the street. They can't release it. It's against the law. And so these are opportunities for jobs and for businesses that could increase the property values of those properties down in the Kalamazoo Industrial Park area. And I think that just should be considered in the number of jobs. There's some real conversation that's out there on Facebook and stuff for people that are interested in higher paying wages for the jobs that would come in with some of these industries. So it's just something that should be considered. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Anybody else? Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Will Rogers. My business is located at 1310 Kalamazoo Street, south of Aylesworth. As many of you have seen, we bought that building a year ago, and the old green engineering building, and as many of you have seen, we've turned it into a beautiful showplace. In June this year, my wife and I became year-round residents here in South Haven. We've moved our business here, and HTS from Germany chose South Haven as its new North America location. We have an opportunity to lease 4,200 square feet to a medical marijuana provisioning center, as well as a 7,000 square foot to a hemp processor, which is another part of the cannabis industry. Between these two businesses, there would be full-time jobs created with wages starting at $20 to $30 per hour, and employing nearly 70 employees just between those two spaces. We are asking for you to reconsider by allowing the medical marijuana provisioning center. We assure you that our tenants will. There won't be advertising out on the front. You're not going to have odors. it will be done professionally. So we're asking you, as you're considering including south of Aylworth, to also please consider the medical marijuana. It could help our company very much by bringing in 2 new tenants and beautifying that beautiful Ward 1. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you. And then just so everyone's clear, tonight we're only talking tonight about a testing facility, not about provisioning, just so we're all clear. And hopefully we can be sitting down soon and talk about,
Okay.
hopefully sitting down with our economic development folks and just making sure that we are, showcasing this facility to a broad audience. So
Okay, we appreciate that very
let's make sure
much.
we do that. We have very good resources, and we'd like to hook you up with them, so.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very
Thanks for
much.
coming. Anybody else? All right. Seeing none, we have council discussion. Any comments?
I
Otherwise,
can only
we'll-
say I support east of Blue Star for testing. I don't see any way, shape, or form that can't get into the community. It can only create possible new jobs, and it's to help an existing business. So I see no reason other than to support it.
Well, I do see the logic that the Planning Commission applied to their proposal to us, but I also remember the concerns by the citizens in Ward 1, and I have to weigh that also into the equation, so.
Great. Anything good?
Yeah, I agree. Out by past Blue Star, I see that, I don't see why other facilities can't be just put out there. In fact, I'm sure that they would look at that location as well. I understand Ward 1's issue with it, and we also have to pay attention to the people that live there first, so.
I agree with Joe when he says it's a testing facility, and that's all we're here to talk about tonight is a testing facility, and how safe or confined it is. But with that being said, and I know and I understand, and I've heard people in Ward 1, and I've heard Joe's concerns mainly that they just don't want it in Ward 1. South of Aylworth isn't really any different than east of Blue Star in my mind. Just I respect the Planning Commission's work and what they put into it and the efforts in their studies. So I don't see if it's okay on the east side of Blue Star, why wouldn't it be the same in an industrial section south of Aylworth? But I'm inclined to vote on which way I think we can get something passed tonight for the medical testing facility, if that so be it. I understand with the vote in the last election that the recreational was turned down, and I fully understand that. And that, again, like Mr. Mayor says, we're not here tonight to talk about that. So that being said, I would support either zoning district, but I understand the motion on the table is just east of Blue Star.
Thank you, sir.
I won't be supporting. I'm going to lean towards the citizens of Ward 1, so, no.
Okay. And just so we are aware, we are talking, okay, very good. I guess I have a few thoughts. I respect, again, the job creation. All of us get that, understand that. I want nothing more than more jobs in this town. Marijuana is just, it's not a slam dunk for this community, and you see the struggle our states, our cities, our country is having with it right now. So it's a struggle. We're here to talk about testing, and I respect Scott for being here. Thank you for putting up with this. It's taken us a while to get here. I would just encourage people again to just continue to learn and understand. This is a scientific laboratory. This is a very safe business. He can share better than anybody how he does the testing, but this will ultimately create jobs. It's it's something that could be very viable in the first ward at a future date if it's determined, if we can educate the public to understand what it is. But for tonight, I want this to move forward. I've been a fan of Vista Blue Star until we can prove the concept, so I will be in favor of Vista Blue Star. We don't have anybody else with a proposal for a lab in the first ward right now, so it's kind of a moot point. So I will just leave it at that and say I'm glad we're finally voting on it. So we have a motion and a second to approve an ordinance to authorize and regulate medical marijuana safety compliance facilities as a special use in a newly created marijuana business overlay district east of Blue Star Highway. Why don't you just roll call it, just to be sure?
Reeser,
Yes.
Schlock,
Yes.
Sleeper,
Yes.
Wilkins,
No.
Campbell,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes, it passes. Thank you. Thanks again, Scott, for coming. Next, we have a motion to approve an ordinance to permit the authorization of medical marijuana safety compliance facilities operated in accordance with state law.
I'll make a motion to approve an ordinance to permit the authorization of medical marijuana safety compliance facilities operated in accordance with state law.
Second.
Motion and a second. Brian?
This is a simple follow-up step. Step one was the zoning ordinance. Step two is essentially the codification through the code of ordinances.
Very good. Thanks, sir. Any public questions on this one? It's a little easier. Council questions? Pretty straight ahead. All right, motion and a second to approve an ordinance to permit the authorization of medical marijuana safety compliance facilities operated in accordance with state law. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
It is approved. Thank you. All right, next, fun stuff. City Council will be asked to consider the following actions regarding a brownfield plan amendment, reimbursement agreement, and tax increment revenue sharing agreement for 253, 257, and 265 Center Street, 508 Quaker, and 505 Phoenix Street. This is the former Hales property in the Central Business District. Sorry. So first, we need to hold a public hearing. So if I can get a motion to open that up.
Make a motion to open a public hearing.
A second.
Motion and a second to open a public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It is open. Very good. All right, so we're here. Brian, you want to just tell us what we're going to talk about?
Members of council, what you're looking at is essentially the fourth step in a four-step process. The city council has received comment from Mr. Randy Locker of Locker & Locker Properties about his planned redevelopment of the former Hale property. The city council has previously approved a commercial rehab abatement agreement with Mr. Locker to help facilitate that redevelopment. In addition to that, Mr. Locker has appeared before our local Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, explaining the planned redevelopment and seeking the Brownfield Board's approval of a Brownfield redevelopment plan. Next, on the third of four steps, the city's Downtown Development Authority also approved that Brownfield redevelopment plan, specifically the tax sharing portion of the plan. Last step is for the city council to consider a resolution formally authorizing those various steps for the final step in Mr. Locker's abatement request. So for tonight, what you're really being asked about is helping in the form of environmental cleanup, demolition, and ultimately the overall site redevelopment. That's a 30,000-foot view of what you're being asked, but at this point, I was trying to summarize quickly for the council's consideration. Put simply, the Brownfield plan has been approved by the Brownfield Board. The tax sharing plan has been approved by the Downtown Development Authority, the board impacted by the tax sharing agreement, and then finally, the council's being asked to approve the overarching resolution authorizing it to proceed. Put simply, if approved tonight, as early as tomorrow morning, you'll see a demolition work starting on Center Street. Just a quick aside, as city manager, not less than 2 years ago, staff was preparing a plan for if and when the city would be forced to take on demolition of the overall Hale block. We were greatly concerned that there was the potential for cave-in of the roof, of the sidewalks, of some of the foundation. For us to be sitting here today, not having to tap public funds to clean up the block, to be using private funds and then abating some of those costs is something that as staff we're excited to see come forward. That doesn't even speak to the excitement about the creation of new commercial and residential space in the downtown. With that, Mr. Mayor, I'll happily answer any questions. We do have Kate and Nick who have also actively worked with both the Brownfield Authority as well as the Downtown Development Authority.
Sounds good. No, this is good news, so I'm sure most people are excited to see this area cleaned up. So this is a public hearing. Does anybody have any questions for us about further construction on Center Street? All right, seeing none, want to close that public hearing?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
Motion and second to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It is closed. Next, we're going to consider a motion to approve Resolution 2019-51, which is a resolution approving the proposed Brownfield Amendment, Reimbursement Agreement, and Tax Increment Sharing Agreement.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2019-51.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any comments from council? All quiet. Randy Locker, thank you very much for a whole lot of work that you continue to do in this community. So thank you. Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is approved. Thank you. What time should I be down tomorrow? Start digging. Go right now, I guess. Okay, let's go. Good. All right. Perfect. Good job. Next, City Council will be asked to consider a motion to introduce the Land Division Ordinance Amendment.
Make a motion to introduce the Land Division Ordinance Amendment.
Second.
All right, motion second. Mr. DeSette.
Yeah, so this is absolutely cleanup work. So as part of our ongoing review of the zoning ordinance, we found just some complicated steps to do what should be a relatively simple land division. Our planning commission has worked with staff to prepare the ordinance as it's currently laid out. So put simply, what we're trying to do is create a single application so that when a member of the public is seeking to divide their private property, it is a simpler step involving the city's attorney as well as the zoning administrator. Right now, if we go by the letter of our local law, you have to go through those folks as well as going to the full planning commission. Nick, Kate, is there any additions that you think are relevant?
Go ahead, Nick. I guess I would just say that this really cleans up a lot. This was kind of flagged by the assessing department and the zoning administrator as just kind of making a very confusing document that has several pages of instructions to really to simplify it and to codify it down for lot line adjustments, land divisions, and combination of parcels. So that's what's before you tonight. Well, as Brian said, this was reviewed by the Planning Commission and worked on by the city attorney and city staff and the assessing department.
The one thing I would add to this, as Kate said, it is largely just a cleanup of language. It shortens the ordinance substantially. It shortens the form substantially to make it more understandable. The major substantive change is that these applications no longer have to go to the Planning Commission, but they still can go to the Planning Commission if there's ever a complicated one involving a complicated configuration of lots. The zoning administrator has the discretion to send it there, but it will streamline the process for more simple applications.
Streamlining is good. Very good.
So what we've seen at the staff level is, it seems like lot line adjustments, that question comes up generally about a day before a property is set to close. So this is one of these that, from the staff's perspective, we hate having to be the bad guy, and this is one where every time we're called on this, we're having to be the bad guy. Explaining the local ordinance, number one, it's complicated, but number two, it's typically a time-sensitive issue, and our interpretation of this is that we're somewhat handcuffed until the next planning commission meeting. That is not the best way to encourage property closings to occur. We're in no way saying that we're trying to make this easy. We are saying we are trying real hard to recognize that this is something that is a bit convoluted. We're trying to do some cleanup to make this easier for assessing and for zoning administration, but we're still keeping in that safety valve that in the event of a complicated land split, we can still essentially punt to the Planning Commission.
Right, this is administrative task work that can be handled by the departments, and this is standard practice around the state. So this is pretty much a cleanup item going along with many communities around the state of Michigan.
For tonight, it's a simple introduction. No further action would be asked from the council.
Very good. Any public questions on this? Comments? It's pretty exciting. All right. Council comments?
I am all for cleaning up and simplifying our ordinances.
Amen to that. I would agree. Hear that? More paperwork. All right, we have a motion and a second to introduce this ordinance. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It's approved. Thank you. Next, City Council will be asked to consider a motion to introduce the sign ordinance amendment.
I'll make a motion to introduce the sign ordinance amendment.
Second it.
We have a motion and a second. Who wants to talk about the sign ordinance?
I'll start and then I'll defer to these folks. So Kate and Nick have spent months working with the volunteers on our planning commission to clean this up. The timing is appropriate. We have the potential redevelopment of a block of our downtown about to be underway. And as we've been watching that redevelopment, we're seeing more and more something that at the staff level, we recognize as problemsome. The sign ordinance in its current format is difficult to administer. It's also difficult for some of the downtown businesses. Their hands are somewhat handcuffed as you have, say, a block of buildings being limited to one or a couple of signs. We worked with our planning commission to put forward what we believe is really common sense rules for signs. But one of the key points on this is taking away any reference to essentially the content of the sign. And Nick has been talking with our planning commission over the last couple of months about the fact that the Constitution is pretty clear on speech, and the zoning ordinance, as it's currently laid out, has some rules that if pushed, we would likely lose on some type of challenge. Now, with that said, I'm going to defer to Kate and Nick to hit some of the high points of the ordinance proposal.
Sure. There are two main reasons why the sign ordinance had to be revised. One, as Brian said, to make it content neutral. So in our previous ordinance, the one that is current right now, you have signs such as political signs and other nomenclature that kind of tells you what the sign is about. That kind of that sign typology where you're defining the sign and what size it can be and where it can be placed and the length of time it can be placed is actually illegal, unconstitutional by a recent court case. So what we went through is we started taking out the content neutral, or making it content neutral, taking out the content-based restrictions. And the second thrust that we wanted to focus on was business signage. We received a lot of complaints and a lot of confusion over our signage in the B2, the B1, B3, B4 areas, are basically all your business zones plus the CBD. There was a lot of restrictions that said you couldn't have multi-tenant signs, or if they did, if there was already a sign in place, another tenant couldn't put their sign up. And signage where if you were facing a parking lot that wasn't municipally owned, you couldn't put signage up that faced that parking lot. So really, for wayfinding, for people who are driving into a parking lot and had to identify which business to walk into, our code actually restricted that. So this final iteration went to the Planning Commission and was recommended approval at their November 7th meeting. But they've also reviewed revisions at their September, October, and then their November meeting. So this has been well vetted. Zoning administrator, city attorney, and city staff had really a good long look at this and started really crafting the version you see before you.
So a couple of things to add to that, to kind of expand on the content neutrality concept. Where that mostly comes into play and substantively in the zoning ordinance will be with respect to residential signage, rather than having separate allotments for real estate signs and political signs and yard sale signs. I think there are a number of those kind of temporary sign allotments in the current ordinance. They've all been combined into a single allotment that allows you to use, I think it's up to 4 signs of fairly standard size for any purpose. So you can support political candidates with that allotment. You can sell your house with that allotment. The 4 signs is designed to kind of give people enough room to speak about whatever they want to speak about, without, changing the regulations based on what the message of the sign is. And that's how other communities have been handling this issue as well. As Kate mentioned, there was a Supreme Court case about 2 years ago now, specifically applying the First Amendment in the context of signs, and did so in a way that basically rendered almost all sign ordinances unconstitutional, at least in some respects. So communities across the country are going through this process. The CBD signage allotments, that's a totally separate issue. That those changes are being done to kind of bring things up into current standards, give a little bit more liberal signage for businesses for buildings with multiple businesses. The current standards are don't provide extra allotments when you have multiple tenants, which we've heard makes it difficult for tenants in multi-tenant buildings to advertise sufficiently. So those are the 2 main categories of changes. There are some other cleanup changes throughout the ordinance, but those are the major ones.
Sounds good. Thank you. The public is enthralled. Anybody want to come up and discuss the sign ordinance with us? Good work. You've lulled them. Okay. Council comments? Everyone's equally lulled. I will say that this is a beefy ordinance. There's a lot to it. So, I mean, I'm very thankful because this was a lot of input from businesses who have reached out, and that's how these things change, is when you call us and we walk through it, and we've gotten chewed out a few times about what was. So hopefully what is an improvement, and we will continue to improve it. So thank you for the work. We have a motion and a second to introduce the sign ordinance amendment. Right? Did have a motion. It's been a while. Good. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It is introduced. So next we're at Police Chief's Monthly Report, but I believe we also have Officer Adam DeBoer, who we're going to do a proclamation for.
Mr. Mayor, you missed 11.
Oh, missed one. Oh, sorry. Item 11. I was trying to go out of here early tonight. Sorry. Next, citizens in the audience will be heard on items not on the agenda. Anybody want to talk? Oh, I got a few people. Come on up. State your name and address. You'll have up to 5 minutes.
Danielle Veenstra, 1220 Monroe Boulevard. I'm suggesting that perhaps an article be put in the paper about the road diet, which I think is great. There's a lot of misunderstanding. Conversations in the locker room, I had to walk away. People are thinking that this has to do with we're going to rent more bikes, and that's why we're doing this, or how stupid this is. And personally, I think it's wonderful. I'm just suggesting that somehow clarification to the public.
Good idea. Thanks. Appreciate it.
I haven't heard anything.
I came here to thank all of you for working with us for the last 4 years on completing the.
Larry, will you tell them your name and your
Oh, Larry Hollenbeck. I thought everybody knew me. 460 Broadway.
You are famous, but you know.
I want to appreciate all the help that I've gotten from the city completing the Broadway Street property. We turned over the park to the city this week. We're very happy that that's happening. Kids are having fun. I have one concern. I am building a house down on the beach, and the Lake Michigan seems to be getting closer to my front yard all the time. I have talked to Brian and Kate on several things. I've been in the excavating and construction business for almost 50 years. I think there's some thought process of looking at maybe a setting wall along the sidewalk, maybe a few other things that could alleviate the sand that it blows into the driveway. Probably could pay for itself in a couple of years for saving the cleanup that's done. If Lake Michigan ever proceeds as it is and doesn't quit, at some point in time, there may have to be a barrier put up to keep Lake Michigan out of the residents down there. So I have talked to Brian and Kate about this. I think it's something that you ought to consider as a board here and talk about it before it happens. 10 more inches of water next year is not going to be pretty. So I do enjoy living here. I moved here a year ago, and I do help you develop your city. Thank you.
We appreciate it. Thanks for your comments. And it is on our radar for sure, so thank you. And it's good news about the building. Next, anybody else? Gail.
evening. Gail Patterson Gladney, and I just have 2 items today. I mentioned before about the Campus for Creative Aging, and that's in St. Joseph, Michigan. I don't know if I gave the address in case anyone is interested in going there. 2920 Lakeview Avenue, St. Joseph, Michigan, and the phone number is 269-983-0177. I'll give this information to Brian. Medicare open enrollment is here, and they're taking walk-ins for those who need Medicare open enrollment. Let's see, tomorrow, the 19th, and then Thursday, December 5th, from 9 to 12 noon, and 1 to 4 p.m. each of those days. And they ask that you bring the following: a list of current medications, photo ID, insurance cards, and Medicare card. And if you have any questions, you can call Ms. Dell Sly at 269-408-4354. And it's a free service. It's put on by the Regional Area Agency on Aging. So I'm going to give that to Brian. I did mention it before, but I just want to give a little more detail. Also, Trees for Troops, and I think I've mentioned this before, but each year the Christmas tree growers in Michigan donate trees to be given to military personnel on selected U.S. bases. There's usually around 700 trees that are donated, and the Wamhall Farms is the collection point. On December 2nd, 2019, volunteers are needed to load the trees onto FedEx trucks for shipment to the military families. And anyone who's interested can arrive at 9:45 a.m. and sign in with Betsy Perales. The farm is located on M40, south of Gobles. And to cut things short, I will also give a letter from Betsy Perales to Brian, so anyone who's interested can call the city and get more information. And thank you for your time.
Thanks, Gail. Appreciate it.
Hi, Scott Wall, 160 Veterans Boulevard. This is relative to public safety in the Veterans Boulevard Industrial Park. As you all know, that we have LMC campus at the far north end, and if you are out in the industrial park on a day-in, day-out basis, we have a lot of young people that walk to the campus. And right now, there are no sidewalks in the industrial park. And so they walk in the street. And with the snow, that's the only option is in the street. So a lot of times they walk through our parking lot. Now, there are some issues there as far as exposure to the fact that they're walking through an industrial facility. But I would rather have them walk through our parking lot and up our back hill to Walmart than walk down that street. What's even scarier is when I watch the daycare people walk the daycare kids single file down that street to go to Sherman's for ice cream. I really think that this is an opportunity for us to look at some type of bike path or a sidewalk of some sort from LMC around to the bridge on Phoenix. Because we want our community, the young people, to be able to get to the campus. We have all these programs for the high schoolers to get out there for AP classes. We've got a daycare program out there. It's a great campus. I think it should be used more. I think we really need to look at making it safer for them to traverse there and back. So, thank you.
Good suggestion. Thanks. Anybody else? Come on.
Hi, Lee Sisson. I'm from Covert, Michigan. I'm just here because I have some concerns about homelessness in South Haven. I know it's not a big problem. There's a small percentage that it happens with, but I think more of the problem is temporarily displaced people. And I know that there's not really any facilities to accommodate for that. I know a lot of the time when I ask people what we can do, I'm told that we have a shelter in Benton Harbor, Michigan, or we have a shelter in Holland, Michigan. And it just seems like with the community that we have and the resources that we have, that we could make some sort of small, I know there's a lot of red tape involved with it as I've been asking more questions, but it just doesn't seem like there's anything for those kind of people. And I know in order for people to be encouraged to get back on their feet, if they have somebody walking with them step by step, that gives them encouragement to do that. So I'm just here to encourage that kind of thought. I guess I'm very uneducated as far as these kind of meetings go. So, but that's my issue of concern. Thank
Great.
you for your time.
It's good. You did just what you should do. Come on up and bring the concern. It's a valid concern, and it's actually funny. I got a text last week one night from somebody saying, do we have a homeless shelter in South Haven? So your timing is very good. So we'll work on maybe getting some resources out there. Anybody else? Rosalie, come on up.
Hi, Rosalie Picotti, 559 Monroe Boulevard. I'll answer him. I guess the first place I would start with that is We Care in the name of Christ, and I'd be happy to give you the phone number and introduce you to a few folks. And as you know, that's a resource of many, many churches, and they do look at that, and there are resources for folks that are displaced. But yes, that has come up many times, and I'm sure they would love to hear your input as well. So thank you. And that phone number is 637-4342.
You are good. All right. Anybody else? Going once, going twice. I really didn't mean to skip the public comment. All right. Now I think we're on to Police Chief's monthly report. And we have Mr. Adam DeBoer hiding back there still. We are going to do a proclamation for Sergeant Adam DeBoer, who successfully completed a CPR, saved a life. So are we ready? Can I read away, or are you reading away? Either one.
I will, after you read the proclamation, I will just give a little bit of detail about the incident. So.
Sounds good. Thank you. All right, so proclamation for Officer Adam DeBoer. So whereas on October the 29th, 2019, Sergeant Adam DeBoer and Officer Ledger were dispatched to an apartment at 72300 Erica Way for a report of a 59-year-old female in cardiac arrest. And whereas Van Buren County Dispatch was unable to tone out South Haven area emergency services due to a phone line being damaged in the region. And whereas Officer Ledger arrived on the scene and began cardiopulmonary resuscitation efforts immediately. And whereas Sergeant Adam DeBoer arrived shortly thereafter with an automated external defibrillator and applied the unit which delivered the life-saving electrical shock to the patient's heart. And whereas Shays, the South Haven area emergency services paramedics arrived a few minutes later to find the patient with a pulse and breathing. And whereas the actions of the responding officers saved the patient's life and prevented a delay in care that Shays experienced due to a communications problem. And now, therefore, let it be resolved that the City of South Haven wishes to recognize Sergeant Adam DeBoer for his life-saving actions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So if I may, I just wanted to give a little bit of background to this incident. And I know a lot of people have heard about AEDs. I don't know if many of you have seen what they are. They are basically portable automatic external defibrillators. So all of our patrol cars have these.
Almost
All of them are supposed to, so almost all of them.
We're a couple tall.
One is short right now because I have this, but basically, this case classically represents that on almost any medical call, the police department is also dispatched. And 100% of the time, our officers will beat medical, whether it's by a minute, 2 minutes. In this case, it was 4 minutes. And as many of you know, with any cardiac emergency, a minute and a half, 2 minutes can literally mean life and death. So the AED that the officers carry when they are going into a situation like this, they'll check for a pulse. They'll immediately begin CPR while someone else gets the AED out. And basically what this does is when it is hooked to a patient, it detects for an irregular heart rhythm. It does not detect no pulse at all, but it specifically, and in this case, it detected what's called BFib, which is kind of an irregular heartbeat. So when this machine senses that, it will advise the operator to shock the patient. And in this case, within a minute and a half, the AED advised that a shock was necessary because it detected that this patient was in BFib. So the shock was delivered. After that, it basically puts the heart back into a more regular rhythm. However, many times, and in this case, manual CPR is still recommended. So after this patient was shocked, 2 to 3 more minutes of CPR by Sergeant DeBoer and Officer Ludger was administered, and then by the time medical personnel arrived, the patient had a strong pulse, was talking, and according to medical personnel, the first minutes of their efforts are what saved this woman's life. And basically, when we use an AED, it will print out kind of a record, so to say, or the activity that was displayed during its use. And medical personnel, upon reviewing the data from this, said that they were able to reverse a fatal VFib rhythm. So it was phenomenal. Officer Ledger was not able to be here tonight, unfortunately, so Sergeant DeBoer is going to accept the award on his behalf. And once again, we have a lot of talk about resources. They were the 2 officers on duty. And again, you know, when I talk about prioritizing, this is a prime example. So Sergeant DeBoer and Officer Ledger, just, it goes without saying, did outstanding work. So I really applaud he and his shift.
It's huge. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Again, I'm a firm believer in supporting police and fire, because when you pick up that phone, it's nice to know they're coming. So, well done. We are city manager's comments.
Members of council, just a couple of quick notes. The timing, I think I'm going to have to pay Mr. Wall a few bucks for queuing me up. Earlier this morning, we received a confirmation from the state of Michigan through their CMAQ program that in 2021 we'll receive $241,000 to extend a 10-foot multi-use pathway from the Phoenix Overpass out to Veterans Drive. So that project is coming. Now, we still have work to do to extend it along Veterans, but this is one of those key projects of continuing to try and connect pedestrians out to important spots like Three Blends Brewing or Lake Michigan College, whichever your preference is. Continuing in that vein, Aylworth, just about every single day throughout the spring, summer, fall, you'll see kids walking along Aylworth. And this is something that for decades the city has not been able to provide a safe pedestrian path. This morning, we also received confirmation of $315,000 from the state of Michigan will be dedicated towards a pathway along Aylworth. So this is something that I think your very first site visit as mayor, we had a local company talking about all of the things that they'd like to see, and their list was essentially one item. They asked for a pathway along Aylworth. So that was site visit number one.
Yep.
Took a couple of years. In the back, give a pat on the back to Bill Hunter. He is absolutely phenomenal to work with, and he has worked his engineering department hard to line up some additional grant funds. These are a couple of years out. We have a whole lot of work still to do on it, and it's not a silver bullet. We recognize we still have more projects to do. So that's your update on sidewalks. And in addition to Sergeant DeBoer being a lifesaver, he is also a very proud parent. So Adam, did they win tonight's basketball game?
It was 49-11. They were up, but they started late, so I had to leave early.
All right, so Adam snuck out of his son's basketball game to come here. So Adam, thank you for joining us and awesome work. Mr. Mayor, those are my comments.
Very good. Thank you very much. Great news on those sidewalks. Council comments. We'll start on my right.
Since this is the first meeting we've had since the election and the election on the decision on marijuana, I can't help but to comment. First thing, I thought it was a great example of democracy. People didn't like what was going on. They wanted to take a vote, so they gathered together, they hit the streets, and they created an election on it. And that's what democracy's about. And I appreciate them doing that. I appreciate all the people that come in here, either side of the argument you're on. People fill this room up and talked about it. The best part, if there is one really good part about it, is this town, the worst thing that could happen is have apathy. When people don't care and no longer come into this room, and we don't have that on hardly any issues. The town cares, and that's why I think they put the petition together, and that's why I think tonight we have people here, so I'm glad for that. We had a meeting on affordable housing just recently. We had well over 100 people. It got a bit impassioned at times with a debate on it, but people care, and I think that's good. The one that's come out of left field for me sitting up here is this road diet. We had meeting after meeting. We filled this room several times with people, parents, and children standing at the podium asking for safety walking across the road. And we did it, and it was a battle. And staff did a great job trying to get the state to approve it. Now that we have it approved, let's see how it works out. The acid test will be this summer. We can always go back, but at least let's give it a chance. And I am grateful forever for this police force. I always say this, I came from part of the country that the police were never part of the community as they are here, and I'm very, very grateful for the officer tonight and the whole police force. We're very lucky to have it. Thanks.
I guess I'd also like to thank everyone that's here today. Even if you're not willing to come up and share your thoughts, just being here and being involved is really what's important, and it kind of echoes what Joe was saying. And I know even though people can't necessarily be here, there's people also that like to watch us on online, which is also very good. I want to thank all those people. I also really want to thank the Planning Commission, because in this agenda packet that we had tonight, there was a lot of good work that was from the Planning Commission. And they really do a great job and put in a lot of effort to make our ordinances better. And I want to thank them for all their efforts in that area. That's it.
So the mayor's going to touch base on this just a little, but we have Small Business Saturday coming up. We are a small community. I want you to remember that we do have a lot of local merchants open year-round downtown. Go visit them. Have a beer. All right? Thanks.
Well called.
I would like to thank city staff for filling potholes today, and that's all I have.
Yes, sir. Like it.
I would like to thank the gentleman, I think his name is Mr. Sisson, from Covert that talked about the homeless issue that is going on. And I was just glad that someone is bringing it up. And that is something that I've talked with the city manager, Brian Dissett, about, and I was glad to hear that. I thought I heard the mayor say something about it too. So I'm just glad that people are aware of that that's going on, and that people are concerned as well.
Yeah, well stated. So yeah, I'll just reiterate, shop local. You don't need to support the billionaires. Don't buy everything on Amazon, right? We have some shops downtown. We have a brewer here. We have shop owners. Center Street's still open, despite where Randy's probably already knocking that building down. He's probably already downtown. So,
Get a hammer.
but so Center Street's still open. Oh, Brian's got a thought. Is he down there?
So, no, Randy took off, but just, you brought up Center Street, and just for the council and for the audience, each week, Kate and I, Bill and I will go to Center Street, the tailgate meeting. They're hosted at the Gourmet Pretzel Shop. But last week, as we were learning about the status of water main work, as we were learning about the project, the owner of Center Street, or I'm sorry, of Gourmet Pretzel, talked to us about, she was just radiating energy. So there's a local business. At times it's a two-person shop. Generally, she's there by herself. She's originally from Sawyer. She started just essentially working out of her kitchen. She then moved using a Cornerstone Alliance Women's Business Center, was able to secure a loan, started her operation in South Haven. She then moved to a bigger spot on Center Street. We then tore up her street. But a big part of her business is the mail order component. She was talking to us about the fact that she had just come back the day prior from Lansing, where she was one of 500 vendors at a food expo. And she wound up being only one of 5, so 5 out of 500, who were honored for having the best display and the most interesting products. That then led to a series of conversations with very large vendors, including Meijer and others, who wanted to begin displaying her products. So this lady is phenomenal. She hosts weekly tailgate meetings. She makes pretzels every day. But if you get a chance, stop down and see her, because the story is really pretty phenomenal. It went from an idea to a kitchen-based business to now she's on our main, or one of our main streets, and she is growing. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but I
No,
just
that's
thought
good.
it's a heck of a good
I agree.
story.
And they're great pretzels. So while you're down shopping, go get a pretzel.
Yep.
Go get a beer. We can also hear from Mr. Feeney. Is going to be at our next meeting. He's going to bring some photos for us, so we'll hear about Harbor Light Brewing. How's that sound? So shop downtown. Center Street's open. Again, thanks, Adam, and all of our public safety folks for keeping me safe every single day, and everybody in this room safe every single day. We do appreciate it. And yeah, so encouraged with Hales cleanup. We should be excited about what's going on downtown. A lot of good things going on. Good building, good vibe in town. With that note, we are not going to adjourn, but this will end our televised part, and everyone gets to go home and rest. But we are going to go into a closed session, so we're going to be asked to consider a motion to go into a closed session pursuant to MCL 15.268H to discuss confidential attorney-client memos regarding ordinance enforcement issues. Just need a motion.
I make a motion to go into closed session pursuant to MCL 15.268H to discuss confidential attorney-client memos regarding ordinance enforcement issues.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. We're in closed session. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Have a great evening. Happy holiday.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, we're